actual question from Usher says, my real question is, if Ayton has a really good playoffs, especially if it leads to a championship, is it more likely that the Suns keep him as part of their core since it led to playoff success, or does it increase the likelihood he gets traded since it would likely raise his trade value significantly? Love the show as always. Hey, thank you, Usher. I never tire of hearing compliments. If surprise, surprise, even though they can sometimes make me awkward if I receive them in public. When it's just me sitting in front of the camera, love it. And also in Discord when you guys give it. Thank you for the compliments we got in that Keith Smith interview. If you haven't checked it out, broke down the entire CBA, the implications, a lot of fun. I would say it's a hard no for me that the Suns would trade Ayton if they won the title and he played well. If he played poorly during the title run and they viewed it as, hey, we had to carry him, they would be more likely to me, hey, we win a title, Chris Paul plays well, like we're still going to look to move on from him anyway because of his age. What I do think is interesting, this gets into a larger discussion about DeAndre Ayton, is will he find his groove with this new era of the Suns? David, he's at the 4-point play for his in Roman numerals at the 4-point play on Twitter, had a great thread about how Ayton is spending more time in the dunker spot during with KD on the court. When I was going back and doing this, which was actually before half of it was done before I saw that thread. And then I did some more after that thread. Watching back a lot of the plays. Yeah. Like he was around the basketball, around the dunker spot more with KD on the court. And I think that's the benefit, especially when you have Devin Booker and KD at once, of just having guys who they don't need a ball screen to operate. I still think Chris Paul's at the point where he probably very much needs one if he's not already mismatched against someone bigger and slower. And even then, he might just still prefer a ball screen. So there's the real benefit of there. And Ayton's, he's suited to do that role because we know he's going to bail out if you ask him to do stuff higher. And what I have noticed watching and then going back and watching a bunch of stuff, and some of it's finicky when you're looking at the data. Like before March 1st, which was KD's debut, DeAndre Ayton was averaging 4.4 post-ups per game. Since then, he's at 2.4. KD missed a bunch of time during that span, though. And since KD came back the second time, his post-ups are actually kind of closer to 4.4 than they are to 2.4. Before March 1st, 37.7% of his shots were coming inside the restricted area. Since KD's first debut, they're at 30.3%, and his mid-range volume overall has gone up from 20. It's at like 24, 25% of his shots. And it was at like 19, 20 before the KD trade. Now, since KD's second return, which has been 4 games, that's down to 17%. And so it's evidence he's getting the basket more. We've seen more of his shots come in the restricted area. I don't know, though, if he's definitely going to find his offensive niche here. And I'm not saying he strikes me now as someone who's been paid and will want more functionally, but I could just see when you need him to be a play finisher, you're going to need him to do other things other than hang around in the dunker spot to get those attempts where if he bails out or is going to go up a little softer, it's not as damaging because they're not jumpers or hooks that he's using. They're at least like closer to the basket, even when he's kind of bailing out and taking jumpers around that spot. And as David mentioned in his thread, we've all bemoaned how few free throws he attempts. That's a way for his free throw attempts to go up. And so I need to see more of that. But I do just question, because when you watch him, and I think what surprised me is when I went back and watched, a lot of this stuff was when Kevin Durant was on the court versus when he was off the court. He seems hesitant more than ever to put the ball on the floor, where he's going to, if he catches it, he's not going to, after he's screening, like he's not it feels like he's been behind a lot of the screens where it's like Chris Paul's looking for him and he's not yet where he's supposed to be on the roll or even the pop. And it feels like he's bailing out. He's catching the ball, stopping, firing. He's not doing a bunch of dribble moves. We're seeing more, if he's on the run, like he's kind of just throwing it up push shots or turning what could be 1-2 dribble touches to the basket into just these little mid-range baby jumpers. And that's just weird to me. And when KD's not on the court and it's one of Booker and Paul or both of them, it does feel like he's more inclined to attack off the dribble, where there's still a lot of settling though. And I don't know if that's just something that I'm wrong about. Like I didn't watch enough of him, but the bailout stuff still very much matters to me. And so if he is going to spend ample more time around the dunker spot, and he's not going to need to come up, set all these screens, that will make his life easier. I just question, is that something he either gets bored with? Is he going to want more? Do they get to a point where they're going to trust him to even do more? Then Chris Paul is getting up there in age. You're going to stagger Kevin Durant from Devin Booker. There's going to be opportunities for him to do more. He just seems more reluctant to do more. And so I'm talking about, will he be unhappy doing quote unquote less? I honestly don't know. But what I will say is super promising here is I've loved what I've seen defensively from the Kevin Durant, Deandre Ayton front court. On Ayton specifically, since the trade deadline, opponents shooting 53.3% against him at the rim. That is just that's an elite mark. And it's since the KD trade. So it's before the trade deadline, actually, a whopping like second before the trade deadline. It's not coming on huge volume, under 5 attempts contested at the basket per game, but he's been massive there. Now you add KD to the equation, whose defense I missed on at the beginning of the season in Brooklyn. I said people were kind of overstating it. He's had a really good defensive year. When he and Deandre Ayton are on the floor, and almost 2/3 of Kevin Durant's minutes have come with DeAndre Ayton on the floor. So these two are playing together a lot. 22.8% of opponent shots are coming at the rim. That's in the 100th percentile. And they're shooting 60.4% at the rim against the Suns. That's in the 96th percentile. The Suns on the season allow 32.6% of their opponent shots at the rim, and they will hit them at a 65.3% clip. So we're talking about drastic differences here. I could see that front line being very successful defensively. And when your fifth wheel is going to be either Josh Okogie or Torrey Craig a lot of the time, certain matchups might be iffy, but that just top unit, the Suns are built to just steamroll during those minutes. And that's why sometimes I wonder if we're overthinking it and we should just call the Suns title favorites. The health questions or whatever, but we could say that about every team. This team is riskier. You're stepping out on a limb more than many others. But when their ceiling is just so high, I really do think we're overthinking it. And that if they had gone through, if this had happened, let's say before the All-Star break, and we trusted that they got a few practices under their belt, or even let's say that Kevin Durant never got injured, that they didn't acquire, let's say they acquired him injured, but he never gets injured the second time and misses 10 games, whatever it was. I think we're at the point where it's probably just like, hey, the Suns are title favorites and we're overthinking this. But because he missed some time, because they haven't had a ton of time together, because the offense it doesn't always look right. And the stuff I said with Ayton is part of it. The last 4 games, and thank you, David, to alerting us all to it. Go check out that thread. I retweeted it on my feed. It's important that he's doing that. Will it last in the postseason when he's going to have to go up against more difficult defenses, and when the bigs that are going to be around the basket they're going to do more to at least change his shot. He's just surrounded by so much talent. He's going to get a lot of opportunities, but will he go up physical enough when there are more demonstrative contests? I question whether DeAndre Ayton is going to flourish with the Suns under this structure offensively. I mean, defensively, as long as he's engaged, it's going to be a rousing success during the minutes he's with KD. We'll see if they have enough depth when we're projecting forward. The moral of the story is I do not think that they're going to move him unless this season ends poorly and he was part of it. And then that's when we start getting into to trades. And I don't really want to get into prospective suitors, but if we were looking at what's a team that I think could maximize DeAndre Ayton the most with what we want to see from him, I think it's probably San Antonio. And not just because of the absence of a center there, but looking at the talent around him and the way they like to play right now. But I would like to see, there's going to be more basket pressure if he's hanging around the dunker spot. I need to see more of what's happening though when he is going to come out and set screens, or he's playing from the outside in. And it also kind of feels like he's not, like, they're going to need him to make passes out of a short roll or a full roll, however you want to frame it. Like when you have, if KD's going to be in the corner, KD's actually allowed to hit corner threes now. He's in Phoenix. That's incredible. Is DeAndre Ayton going to be able to find him more? They might need him to make not more complicated decisions, but like those are decisions that, rather than him sort of bailing out for a jump hook or a fade or just a stop and pop midi, short midi, whatever you want to call it, can you get all the way to the basket, especially now that you're working with so much space and just so much proven scores around with just having Devin Booker and Kevin Durant on just either side of you. Holy fuck. Imagine what that does to defenses. I want to see more of that from him. I think having him closer to the basket to begin with, and that's something that having KD alone helps you with, but also Devin Booker as well. Like that's going to, I think I can see how it would help DeAndre Ayton, especially David mentioned this in his thread too, against certain playoff opponents. But I think long-term and just overall, you need a little bit more oomph from him. And when he's had to play higher on offense in the half court during the Kevin Durant minutes, and even during the non-Durant minutes, the bailouts are still there. It just doesn't feel like that is necessarily clicking yet. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. I think this team's going to be really fucking good. They're already really fucking good, and I don't think they've hit their peak yet.